Hey, what's up guys? Brandon here from TopDenGamer.com. Just got done building a gaming PC for my brother. It was a $450 budget build. So just wanted to show you the parts and some of the results I got and just kind of talk about how easy it is to get good performance out of gaming PCs these days. For processor, we went with the i3-6100 here from Intel. This Skylake CPU has 2 cores, 4 threads, and really does a good job of games. Overall, it fit the $110 budget that we had. Alternatives, for those of you out here who would rather go with something different, the FX8320 you can get about for the same price here in the US. But with the FX8320, if you're gonna get the FX8320, you have to overclock it. Then you have to buy a CPU cooler and a more expensive motherboard than what we went with. And adding that additional money for this build just simply wasn't possible. Plus, for the general purpose PC usage my brother does on a daily basis, the i3-6100 fit perfectly. For graphics card, we decided to go with the RX 470. Initially, we were gonna go with the GTX 1050 Ti, but after seeing a few of the benchmarks, seeing that only the mini version could be gotten for $140, and anything else you're gonna pay around $150 or $160 for, we went with the much better performing RX 470 for $170 after rebate. For those of you who are price shoppers, I also, since that time, since we built this machine, I've seen a flash sale on Newegg that you could get the RX 470 for $160. So for the same price, the RX 470 4GB is a much better performer than the 1050 Ti, so it was the way to go for sure. For games, I wanted to test Battlefield 1 because I wanted to see how the i3 would bottleneck the RX 470. It did a little bit. CPU usage was always at 95 to 100% on ultra settings, and we got an average of about 64 frames with a minimum of 39 and a max of 97. Once I turned off anti-aliasing, that went up drastically. On high settings, we got an average of 78.4 frames per second. It still looked fantastic. And really, if you're gonna play Battlefield 1 with this setup, that's probably the way to go. I did have one freeze on Ultra as well, so clearly the max intensive CPU usage for Ultra settings with anti-aliasing was a little bit too much for our processor. What I would recommend if you're gonna go that route is just to turn down a couple of the settings. You could definitely still run it on Ultra, but just turn down the anti-aliasing. Now, I don't want to steer you away completely from getting the i3-6100 here, but you know, you could get the i5-6400 for about $70 more, and then you would never have to worry about it. But for my brother, who doesn't normally even play AAA titles, the i3-6100 was more than fine. I mean, he doesn't need more than 60 FPS in games. He doesn't use a monitor that's over 60 Hertz. And really, the combination of the i3-6100 and the RX 470 was really everything he needed in games, and he could tweak things and do just a fine job of that. And he's by the way, he's super happy with it. So, by the way, I've also seen the i5-6400 get a little bottlenecked on Battlefield 1 as well. So just keep that in mind. That game can be fairly CPU intensive, and other games is not as big of a deal. I ran it in Skyrim Special Edition. Certainly didn't have the same problems there, and the game looked pretty fantastic. I mean, Skyrim Special Edition, and for PC users, it doesn't feel like much of an upgrade, but overall, it was a good experience. For case, we went with the Thermaltake Versa H23, a case I really hadn't ever used before. It was $25 after a $20 rebate on Newegg. Certainly worth that price. It's very lightweight, a lightweight case. Certainly not something super sturdy. Plenty of expansion slots, toolless installation, which I thought was a plus, and it had a windowed side panel, which I thought was a really great idea. Brother didn't really love the front of it because it was a little bit too much for his wife. This is going to be their home PC as well as a gaming rig, but I think he thought it was worth it for everything we got in the case for around $25. Again, wouldn't spend $50 on this. I think there are better cases in that price range, but for a budget build, it's perfect. One plus about this build is it's a super low wattage build. I went ahead and plugged this thing into the kilowatt meter, and at idle, it only pulled about 36 to 40 watts from the wall, and full usage, we weren't really going over 220 watts. So even when I was in the middle of Battlefield 1 doing everything, it wasn't pulling more than 220 watts from the wall. For this reason, we went with an EVGA 430 watt power supply. This is an inexpensive power supply. I'd probably consider it tier 3, meaning this thing isn't gonna last the next 10 years probably. But you know what? I think it'll do a plenty good job for this hardware. I've seen a lot of people use them. I've seen some people say, hey, why do you wanna buy such a cheap power supply? But you know, honestly, when you're spending $450 to get a bronze certified power supply that looks great and has a 3-year warranty, I think you're getting a pretty good deal overall. For motherboard, we went with something just about as cheap as we could find in the MSI H110M Pro VD. Tom's Hardware recently did a study showing that for stock speeds, chipset motherboard doesn't really matter. First of all, this motherboard does have a PCI Express 3.0 slot. So we weren't really affected in that way. I'll put this Tom's link in the description below. You guys can go check it out. But basically, we got a motherboard for $40 and it did everything that we needed to. It had room for plenty of expansion slots and it was all that we really needed. So that's why we went with it. I think when you're building a budget build and you're not planning to go out and overclock your CPU and you're not going to get a CPU cooler for that, why spend a bunch of money? You're not going to get better performance. So that's why we went with this H110 chipset. For RAM, we're just using a 2x4 gigabyte kit configuration of the HyperX here. It's a 2133 megahertz RAM for this H110 motherboard. That's as high speed as it'll take anyway, so there's no need in going beyond that. It's cheap and pretty good quality RAM for, I think we spent like $40, so not bad. For capacity, we went with an ADATA solid state drive, a 240 gigabyte solid state drive. My brother doesn't mind moving around a few things, and he's got an extra hard drive on another computer that he used to use, so it made a lot of sense to go that direction. Even if I didn't have another hard drive, by the way, I'd still go with a solid state drive here. I can't build any machine without a solid state drive. The performance is incredibly snappy for this particular drive, and his wife and him, they just love it. I mean, it's changed their whole PC computing experience at home. So definitely go with the solid state drive here. You won't regret it. All right, so really an energy efficient PC and a silent one. While I was building it and I had it on and my other computer was next to me, I was trying to hear this thing. I mean, I was purposefully trying to hear this machine, but the case only has 120 millimeter fan. The Gigabyte WindForce graphics card has a fan stop option, and even when it's running at full capacity is near silent, okay? And the processor's stock CPU cooler was quiet as well. So I honestly couldn't hear this thing. I did a little noise test here that I think I'm gonna throw in for you so you can check out what I'm talking about. But that was just one added bonus, the energy efficiency of this overall. I wasn't even thinking about that for this build, but it turned out super energy efficient, super quiet, which I think is a plus for many of you. Okay, that's all I really have to say for this build. Appreciate you guys being here. If you made it all the way to the end of this building, hopefully you like me, like this video. If you do, you can help me out a ton by pressing like on this video. That helps this video to get more exposure. You can also subscribe to me and see more videos just like this one in the future. You can also go to the description below where I've done full write-ups and reviews on our website for the case used in this build, the motherboard, for the build itself. You'll get to see lots of unique pictures. Also, if you decide to buy anything from this build, you can help us out a ton. We're not sponsored. This is not a sponsored build. You can help us out a ton to repay for costs by going and using our Amazon links in the description below. Again, grateful you guys are here regardless of whether you subscribe, use any of those links, whatever. Just glad you're here. Hopefully, if you have any questions, you'll feel free to use the comment section below here or on our website. Again, great to have you, and we'll see you next time.